wherever you might be happening to listen to this. Right now in the eastern United States where we are, it is good evening. You found us on episode 328, where we are reviewing the September shows that we did. We call it the month in review. If this is the first time you're finding us on this platform, we fire up on about Thursdays, 6:15 to 6:30 on the YouTube Live. It's a great way to interact with us, engage with us. Normally, so at the end of the month, we have Kyle King is the new uh, month in review co-host. He is traveling. Neil, did I tell you he was out of the country? Did I tell you he was traveling? Where is he? I forget.
You just said out of town.
I just
So
said out of
country's a
town.
lot bigger
Okay.
than that.
He might be out of the country. It's hard to say. Who knows? But this is September the 25th. I am Chris, your co-host, and we have Neil coming out behind the curtains to share his view, his opinions, his experience on the month in review. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I am definitely not just distributing therapy services or whatever you say as far as that's concerned. I am definitely opinionated and my views do not correlate to anyone else's on this show. So if he's going to say I'm sharing my opinion, I'm just going to throw that disclaimer out there.
I appreciate that. We probably ought to just have it scrolling on the bottom or something, right? All right, this is going to be a little bit of a different month in review as well because of circumstances, scheduling, and stuff. We did two shows in November. And Neil, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed that break last week. I did. I needed it. I had some stuff going on. I'll tell you in a minute. But we're going to review the two shows, and I kind of want to do it a little bit quickly. We'll tell you what we kind of got into with episode 326 with OCD personality disorder. It was a diagnostic show. And then we did episode 327, the value of vulnerability, which I think was a fun conversation. I don't want to short either of those, but I really want to get to what has been on my heart to really spend a lot of time today on, and that is kind of talking about the world, right? The
The
world.
entire
We
world.
have so much going on, Neil, in the way of social media and interacting, and I've got thoughts about it from a mental health perspective that I want to get out in front of in a way that I don't even know that my whole field is doing because nobody's doing it. Nobody understands, I think, exactly what the whole human emotional experience is. So this is going to be a little bit of a different month in review. We're going to review those couple shows, and then I want to really Neil and I are just going to really wrap on this and kick things around so that we can begin to, as the show really says, figure this out together. Because Neil, this dude, it's killing us, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now things are really rough. So
And I think we're going to be a lot rougher. This is not going to stop.
yeah.
If anybody's trying to be hopeful about that, I don't mean to be pessimistic or whatever about it, but we are going in a direction as a human race that is really starting to concern me, and I want to really spend a little bit of time on why that is, and it has everything to do with human beings' ability to adjust to technology as quickly as we are really needing to. I don't think we can. That's the
Yeah.
problem, and
Yep.
that's really it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
All right. So this is 92525. Like I said, I've enjoyed putting it out on my notes today, Neil. 92525. Those numbers are cool to type into a little date field. I get my jollies off from that. This is usually where we have a panel of therapists where you get insights about mental health and substance abuse, knowing it's not delivery of therapy services. Neil clearly said a little bit ago, very wildly. Um, I got those books out through a therapist's eyes. Not hard to find them. If you know the name of this show and you're listening to it, then you know the name of the books. One on marriage, one on self. I'm really proud of them. I think they can be really short reads for you. Each chapter is a real therapy moment that I kind of wrote out into a few pages to kind of give explanations and good thoughts about how to manage life on life's terms, as they say. YouTube, subscribe, click. John gets upset if we don't have 5 stars. I'll say it for him. 5 stars. 5 stars, Neil. 5 stars.
5 stars. Yes.
Yeah. Click Spotify, and leave us a review. All that stuff helps us out a lot. Contact at throughatherapisteyes.com is our email. We love to chat and interact with you. That's a great way to do it. Really and truly, today's episode is going to highlight that this is the human emotional experience which we endeavor to figure out together. That is the intro. And man alive, Neil, I got to start out by saying I'm having my second cup of coffee today.
Only is it? Yeah, you don't do a lot of coffee, do you?
No, I'm a decaf guy, man. I am now back to my decaf ways for the most part. Just because when I need a hit, I need a hit. Today I need a hit.
That's
Um,
funny.
that was a long day yesterday. I'm kind of happy to say uh, I was able to have the honor of going to a naval hospital and give a presentation about therapy and whatnot when therapy gets stuck, and I really enjoyed it. But dude, I went down there Tuesday night and I didn't sleep in no hotel, man. That sucked. It,
Rough hotel.
oh man, it was a nice hotel, but I don't know, and I didn't even feel that wired. But then I woke up at like I did get a little bit of sleep, particularly starting at about 4 a.m. And then I got in there, and man, to get on a Navy base, that is not easy. So that was like, the day started at 6:30, and I couldn't get through the gates. It wasn't enough time, and the paperwork and all that kind of whatever. So the guys came and got me. The presentation's supposed to start at 8 o'clock. I literally walked in the room with my bags on my shoulder, holding my thing, putting my thing on the thing, and boom, here we go, 8:06 into the conference because it's very, very tight on time. It's like no intro, no organization, no like who's the audience, kind of peer look around, take a breath. It's just I literally walked in the room and started banging.
Well, that's good because you didn't have a chance to like psych yourself out or overthink it. It's like you just went for it, right? That's like the
Indeed.
best way to you don't even get like nerves or anything. You just
Right.
went.
Well, I was sitting there pacing on waiting to get to pick me up because to escort me into the base. So that was like and then day ended at 5 o'clock. I drove home from Jacksonville. I didn't get home till 11. So I slept really well last night, brother. But I need like two or three more of those nights. two,
Yeah.
two or three at this point in my life. But it went really well. It went really well. If you have anybody that you want presented to you, you're a part of an agency, a part of a group, man. I'm really kind of getting my chops for, giving seminars, whether they be shorter, an hour, two or three, and or a full day conference. I'm totally jumping into the pool on that end of the stick and feeling more and more comfortable with it as you do it. I mean, it's a long time to talk to therapists about how to do therapy, Neil.
What do you do for 6 hours? Like how long? Like because
I know, right?
I've seen your presentation and we've kind of gone through it, but how do you fill that time for that long? I mean, have you added that much to it as a presentation? Do you ad lib a lot of stuff? Like how do you
It's
do
it's
that?
funny. There's a lot of ad libbing. There's a lot of interacting, to be honest with you, and that's one of the things I really like about discussions. I mean what I say on the show here. It's this is the human emotional experience, and we endeavor to figure it out together. And it's amazing when you get a group of people together and you get some juices flowing, and some of the things they say you play off of it, you engage. But I mean, there's a lot to present when you start talking about how do we get unstuck in therapy, and there's modalities, there's little tricks of the trade. There's little ethical things. There's elements of like tools that we actually use. I mean, there's, yeah, well, what is our show prep? A page worth of notes. I mean, you could talk about that for an hour, and we're usually screaming at the end to get things in. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, yeah. All right, that's my whining, Neil. I'm done. I'm done whining. I have the coffee in me. We'll get it affecting me here in about 15 minutes. I'll be hyper, maybe shaking a little bit. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's been yeah, we missed last show because of my wife's art thing, which was actually it was interesting to go to, but then we found they did something really cool on Saturday with it. So it was I don't know anyone whoever runs art guilds or anything like try to schedule the receptions on a day besides Thursday. Like every single one I know does it on Thursday, and it's like it makes my podcasting schedule very complicated. So anyone in the North Carolina area that my wife might try to sign up for an event, please do the reception on like a Wednesday or a Tuesday. I know Wednesday's reserved for church and all that stuff, but do
He's speaking
Tuesdays.
to everybody now across the world.
Anyone who runs an art guild or any art competition that my wife might enter into. So they're fun. They're good, cool to see other artists and stuff. But and that's great to support my wife. So
You know what episode 326 did for me, Neil?
what did 326 do for you?
It reminded me of OCD personality disorder. Yeah, it really did. Diagnostic show, OCD personality disorder with differential diagnosing. I literally, I made the statement in that show that I don't remember or recall if I've ever diagnosed it. And I'm trying to think in my mind right now who it was, and it's not even coming to me. But maybe it'll come to me. But I was sitting there with this person, probably what was the next week after. It wouldn't have been Friday, so it was like uh, maybe Monday or Tuesday after the show. And it dawned on me that this dude doesn't necessarily have OCD. It seems more like OCD personality disorder right in front of me. Yeah.
So quick recap. Like, what is the difference between OCD and OCD personality disorder? I know, like with like bipolar versus like manic depressive, bipolar is this more of a or borderline. Borderline, that's what it is. The
Right,
borderline
right.
is a lot more closer waves, right? The manic depressive like these longer waves of the same thing. So is that the similar thing with OCD personality disorder that you're like what's the biggest difference? If you like quick recap.
It's honestly Victoria really did a good job of this. If you're listening to this, tune into the show because she really actually nailed it pretty well. And that's what I said. She was helping my brain kind of get into like what that difference is. And it's like OCD. Fundamentally, when you have OCD, you're like, man, I got to touch the doorknob 12 times. I don't know why. I know it's stupid, and this isn't making any sense. It's kind of like, "Ugh," you're trying to prevent yourself from doing something you really don't need to do. OCD personality disorder, you kind of skip over that. You're actually in a space where, oh no, you do need to touch the doorknob 12 times. That's being thorough. That's being on point. And also, Neil, you better touch the doorknob 12 times too. Otherwise, you're not doing it right. Just trying to help you, man. Just trying to help you. You see, it's the insight level. It's like if OCD folks, they may or may not realize that they're being compulsive or obsessive, but they're not that difficult nagging boss who's not only micromanaging, but 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 essentially like putting you in a space where you need to do it the way I do it so that you can do it right. It's a personality flash,
So I'm OCD, so you have to be too.
basically. Kind of,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. It's a personality thing, and these personality disorders are interesting. I mean, whenever we do a show on them or I talk about them, they're really different than other diagnostics that we do. We used to call them on an axis two diagnosis, and now they haven't changed it. We have DSM-5R out now. We had DSM-5. My brain's still mostly operating on DSM-4 or DSM-4R revised. Those are the old diagnostic and statistical manuals. That's where we got all of our diagnosing in. One big fat book that we have to read, learn, and know. Well, they changed it forever. We were waiting on the DSM-5 to come out. When it did, they never changed anything about those personality disorders. Not much is understood more than what we've known for 25 years, essentially. And then 5R came out and it changed it again. I'm like, do we not understand these things? And I think essentially we kind of don't. Remember my theory? You remember my theory is?
I'm thinking which theory that would be that we really
Wow,
don't change
dead
a lot.
air.
Huh?
A dead air. I was taking a drink and you were in deep thought. Like,
I was trying to figure out because I was thinking like what is your theory, Chris? Because you've said a lot, and I'm not. Which theory is this one?
fair. I do think outside of the box and enjoy kind of trying to figure things out together with people. The endocrine system.
I
Yeah, the fact of all of the hormones and neurological systems. As a matter of fact, I was driving a lot the last couple of days. I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson talking once again. Neurology is the biggest field of all right now, as far as potentially new and exploratory stuff coming out. And he literally said, we're going to be able to zip into your brain in some sort of way and fix a lot of problems that we never were able to. And the mental health is right in the front of that because we have currently zero cures for mental health realities. Zero. Can't cure anything. We are in the stage of managing them. But I have a feeling that when we begin to identify neurotransmitter systems, mineral elements of nutrition, connecting and combining with hormone production in the endocrine system, and how all that stuff really works to drive the way that we feel, what we're experiencing in our bodies, we're going to literally be able to fix crap at that point, and that's exciting.
I'm torn on that statement because I feel like there's a lot of stuff when you think about people who have had disorders or personality disorders or OCD or those things, and you think about the mechanisms that have been developed over time to help people deal with that, and and them struggling with it, creating new neural pathways and those things in their brain to help adapt and do it. Like, I knew a guy who had ADHD hyperfocus, and in college he started failing classes because he didn't realize it. Well, then once the teacher realized it, he talked to the counselors at the college, they gave him ways to cope with his ADHD hyperfocus, right?
Oh yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then he created new neural pathways, right? So it's almost like we've worked through times, like you said, where we manage it, where we almost create these neural pathways. Is it really exciting, the fact that anytime you have an issue, you can just go to a robot and just basically fix your problem because you just don't like this feeling, so you just go fix it? But then you don't live life. It's that same thing of like taking some of the medications that numb you,
Oh,
right?
I see a little better
So,
now. Go
so,
ahead.
so the
Yeah.
question, right, when it comes down, and if you rely on a robot to fix all of your problems, well, then do
Robot.
you actually ever learn how to deal with your process, right? It's the same thing of the, people who take pills just because they don't want to cope with reality. It's like, it sounds great, but then you lose the human factor of adapting and resiliency and those types of things if you just go for quick fixes.
I get that. And I see your point a little louder. I think my counter to your really insightful question, about losing humanity. I don't think we'll lose humanity in that, Neil. No more than, the humanity of people and our dietary choices. If you're our diabetic, and your insulin levels just don't work well, therefore your cells can't get the juice that they need from the food. That's what insulin does. We have treatments that can fix that problem and help you to process food, and then you can do what you normally do. We're not taking away what the body normally does. Think about it. When somebody is depressed, we all experience depression through grief. But if somebody is chronically depressed, something's going on in their body that we don't quite know where to zip or zap, nip or tuck. And when we figure that out, heck yeah, I want a robot to give me new neuro pathways, baby, because I'm going to feel better. And I'm not going to go back to the well every time that I'm having a bad day. But I certainly want something to be able to fix that neuro pathway if we figure out that there's a block that's there, to take that block out so that then I can normally function. See the difference?
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
100%. And I think that's the part you have to look at, because my concern is, once again, it's the Ritalin moms that take it because they don't want to deal with certain things, right? There's
or
always that.
Ritalin dads.
It's the idea that there's always the major problems. I'm not going to take insulin because my blood sugar is a little off, because I'm fine, right? You
Yeah.
have to find the people that actually need it and fix those problems, right? A diabetic has an issue that has to be addressed. Someone who has depression needs to be addressed. Someone who has actual anxiety, through those things, that's different than someone who just, I'm having a hard time struggling dealing right now, right? Or I'm sad for a little. Like, you're not depressed, you don't have anxiety, you're anxious and you're sad, right? There's a difference between those things. And I think that's my biggest thing. I think it's exciting if we get to that point where we can really help the chronic problems, right? That's super, super powerful, super awesome, right? But my concern is from monetary, from people's no lack of delayed gratification, those things. I think if we find these fixes, they're going to become quick fixes and all this other stuff, right? I'm 20
Yeah,
pounds overweight. I take
it'll
Ozempic.
be
Well, it just
interesting if
came to
we get
that.
robots with unique steroids to buff me up, man.
He just follow you around, just pokes you with needles when you don't expect it. Like, yeah.
Oh, that's my adrenaline kick. Thank you. Now I can function. No, it's OCD personality disorder. The traits, to kind of get back to that, Neil. You have perfectionism to the point of dysfunction, preoccupation with rules, orders, lists. Like I said, just imagine your micromanaging boss on steroids, to use that phrase. Rigidity in moral or ethical matters. Like, you really, the biggest thing is you see your way as the right way, and you're myopic about that. there's a layered egocentrism in there, to use a big word. It's basically like, you're kind of self-driven, self-aware, and not compassionate or able to connect into other people. There's a reluctance to delegate because, people won't do it right. All of that is like personality interactions. One of the ways I think of this is classically, when now let me preface this by saying parenting and parents are not likely to create this issue. However, socially can maybe feed into it. I, when I'm working with parenting and OCD, I always use the example of like little Johnny going to bed. You know, Nighttime routines are difficult in any family to a large extent, right?
Hmm.
And so, so what happens is with a kid that has OCD, they get layered into a pattern sometimes. You have to walk into the room, say, "Good night, Johnny. I love you. I'll see you in the morning," in that order. And then you can walk out and all will be well. Guess what happens if you don't say, "Good night, Johnny. I love you. I'll see you in the morning." You know, if you don't say that, Johnny's losing his mind, right?
Right.
He's he's stuck. This has to happen in his world. Otherwise, you can't, the world's going to end. It's the way it feels. It feels so desperate with OCD. So parents don't want that battle. They don't want that battle. And so they'll just say, "Yes, good night, Johnny. I love you. I'll see you in the morning." So I can have peace. I can go to bed. All is well.
Yeah.
Problem is, what Johnny is learning is that what I need, the world conforms to, and that's what I begin to expect. And that's a problem.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. When you expect people to follow what you believe because of, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I mean that goes back to the same idea where we have with parenting and helicopter parents and the things going around where parents are stepping in and helping their kids more than they should when they get older. Right? It's that same basic idea, but there's a more rigidity. I think you said from the person with OCD, right? There's
Yeah,
more.
rigidity is the key. It's an element that just, it's so difficult to deal with people. As I'll leave this diagnostic, then we'll move on to the next and get to what I really want to get to. Is like when somebody gets under your skin, that tells you, like, in therapy, when I miss something and somebody starts getting under my skin and they start irritating me, I find myself like just with an edge. I'm like, oh yeah, personality disorders. I think I forgot that. I didn't see that, but now I know why I'm feeling the way that I feel. I'll ask some diagnostic questions, kind of get to it, and usually, like, yep, there it is. I didn't see it.
Does that
And
help you when you deal with your patients or just people in general? When you do diagnose people with something, it helps you kind of how to better interact with them.
with personality disorders, well, not interact. It helps me to identify something that I missed. I mean, I love all my clients, work with them. I don't really get bothered by them, even if they're upset with me or whatever. I mean, it's a professional relationship. But what I'm saying is the indicator to myself is that if I get irritated and I didn't previously see personality disorders, that gives me a bump in awareness. I'm like, oh, missed it.
Makes sense.
Now I
Yeah,
know why I'm feeling this way. You see?
makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. So again, we can get to what I really want to get to, which is the discussion in the chat about the freaking world, man, and life. All right, episode 327 was the value of vulnerability. The three questions here was: when was a time you felt vulnerable with someone and how did it impact the relationship? Two, do you tend to see vulnerability as a weakness or as a strength? Why? And I think we mostly see it as a weakness generally. And then three, what risks and rewards come with being open about your struggles, especially in therapy or relationships? Like, does that feel like a risk? Does that feel like a reward? And I think probably vulnerability generally feels like a risk. I think that was a really important topic, so much so that you wanted to jump on with it with us, didn't you? You didn't want to get back. You raved that whole show. Do I remember that
Yeah,
correctly?
I was with that one because Victoria couldn't make it, and I was like, this is the show I think is super important to hear right now, and I wanted to say my 2 cents about it because I think vulnerability is underrated nowadays with a lot of the stuff with social media and all the other stuff. We talk about the reality and all the other things that are tied to it. But I think
We'll get to
vulnerability
that.
is, yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah, I think vulnerability is so important right now.
Wow. I
And so I
I
thought
can
that was
interrupt
very
you and just
cool.
say, you know what, Neil, you're absolutely on point, and this little review show will lead to a nice segue into what we're talking about. I was looking at my show notes, and the very first line. Listen to the very first line in my show notes when preparing. Vulnerability is the gateway to authentic connection, personally, professionally, and in therapy. And I didn't remember that I had done that, but dang, when we start talking about world events and social media and stuff, I don't think it's very authentically connecting,
That's an understatement.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely one of the idea of authentic in a world of social media, let alone authentic connection. Like that's just those things don't tie together right now. When it comes to social media, there's absolutely nothing authentic about our connections we make with people. You know, a lot of the people when it comes to social media, they have an authentic connection before they got on social media, or they get that
Yeah.
connection after they leave social media to then meet in person. Right? Social media in all of its we'll say greatness.
It's
It's
pretty great.
really it's really great to connect us, but it doesn't really and allow us to really get connections with each other, right?
All right,
It's there's
we're gonna
such
get
a
there, man. We got. I think we're itching to get to that. Vulnerability matters in a lot of ways. I think that I enjoyed doing that show, and it really kind of touches on a fundamental. I don't think we talked about it, but would we call it a skill, Neil? A skill in being vulnerable.
I think it's something you have to practice. I think if that's the case, it does become, being vulnerable is a skill you have to hone. It's also a being vulnerable is like practicing like public speaking. You some people are good at, some people aren't. Some people can open up and it's not a problem, but like for most people, being vulnerable with someone is about as scary or more so than as public speaking. And so it is a skill you have to hone because you have to be able to read cues to know when you can open up. What are you opening up about? Are you opening up to the right person at the right time? Like there's a lot of stuff you have to learn. And until you either start opening up to more people, you really don't know. You're either socially awkward, you just blurt something out that's, hey, TMI right now, we're not really that part in a relationship, or you never open up and it's just a closed relationship. And so it is
Yeah,
honestly, I agree. Being vulnerable is a skill that you have to acquire, you have to build.
and it's a strength, obviously. In our question is, do you interpret this as a weakness or a strength? I got to tell you, yeah, playing off what you're saying there, Neil. I had a really weird experience when I wrote that book, and I was coming up on the first publication date, and when I held the book in my hand for the first time, I was kind of like, wow, there's a lot of me in this book, and it is permanently written. And it's different than, I think, what we even catch into the social media when we type in the keyboard. I don't know that we really connect with the fact that when you post something on Facebook, it goes out to the world. But I really connected it in my psychological brain when I wrote that book. And I went through a little bit of a freak out. I don't know if you remember that or if I even let on, Neil. You
I
know?
don't I don't know if I was really like, yeah, you didn't let that on. I don't remember that freak out from you. So
It
if you were
was
doing that,
really, really a weird feeling to think that this is gonna go out and anybody in the world can literally read my thoughts. They can have my head in their hand, and they can say anything they want to about it. They could be nice about it, they could be mean about it, they can love it, they can hate it. I don't have any control over that. It's written, you already have it, I'm done. What am I gonna do with it? And the same thing is I just did a full day conference yesterday. I'm presenting to somebody and like you said, how do you feel an hour or a day? How do you feel that? Well, I'm presenting a lot of thoughts. And honestly, I've had comments to some extent that people will roast you. And if you don't have thick skin, the ability to tolerate vulnerably somebody giving you feedback about something that you just said like a day ago and they're roasting you, man, that's an emotional ride. It really is. And when you're in the
mhm.
middle of doing it, it's kind of like, you know, you're not fully aware of it, but then you begin to experience it.
And I
So,
think that that book is a lot different than a social media post, right? You've legitimately spent 6 months, a year, really curating your thoughts, and you put everything into this. What I mean, what is a social media, right? 250 characters or whatever, and blurbs that you can say, I want people to hear this now, and then that's it, and then you do another blurb. And then, like, it's not the same. They don't really get to know you, or they don't get the depthy part of what you're really saying, right? Your book is so much.
but they are.
Yes, they are.
They are. And I think that's the conversation that we want to get to here. It's funny that you're saying that because when we really get the focus here in a couple minutes on like what's going on in the world, what is the human race experiencing? I think that gets to it. And you didn't mean to do that, Neil, but look, I wrote a book. Yes, I curated it and it was touched up. That should make that actually easier to tolerate, people reading it because I spent a lot of time on it. I also had an editor that made it sound a lot better than I write. Okay.
Yeah,
Courtney is
Courtney's
awesome.
amazing.
She is amazing. So, but when I'm popping something on a Facebook post, I'm doing the same thing. I am putting this out to the whole world. But yet, as you just went through, humans don't even realize it. But, but, but they are feeling the feelings of it. And it's like subconscious. I mean, how many times have you posted something and then realize like, oh God, I shouldn't have said that. Now you can maybe go and delete it somehow, sometimes, but you now know that that's out there. Or somebody says something about your post and you get all up in arms, like, oh, I'm going to block that person. I mean, all of that. We'll get into it, but this is all very, very different experience, and our psychology doesn't know how to handle it
Yeah. I think, because I think the biggest part, I think, like you said, once you post it, it's out there, right?
forever.
If you can try to delete it, but there's always someone that snaps it. There's always a bot that does it. I think there was always that joke. Like, imagine when we were kids, if we had cell phones, how much stuff our parents would have seen, or how, like, you think about the stuff we
Yeah.
used to do as kids, and now it's like everyone records everything and puts it out there. It's like people really don't understand that, like, those moments when you hang out with your buddies and you do something stupid, jump off of a bridge into the water, shoot BB gun. Have you have you seen the water tower that's like it's Conway Twitty or whatever, some country star, and someone legit sniped it and shot a hole like right between his legs, so it looks like he's peeing out the water tower. It's one of
No.
those things that we would do as teens or kids, and no one knew those things. But now every time you do something, it's always out there. And when you post something out of emotions or feelings, it's out there. Like, if you get mad
Forever.
at someone and you yell at them, okay, well, you yell, you get it out, they get hurt or whatever, you deal with it, go there. Now I post it, say something that's offensive to someone because they took it out of context or I meant to hurt them. Well, now it's there for them to see. So when they go back to your page, they see that comment again. And
Forever.
and
And
it's
to
really hard.
everyone.
And that's the thing, right? That's the reality, that's
Wild.
the part of it, right? And that's the fear. When you talk about going back to the statement of vulnerability, right? It's easy to be vulnerable with someone that you build a relationship to. But in reality, on social media, when you expose your raw feelings, you're actually being really vulnerable to the entire world. But now, in this case, instead of being a curated relationship with someone that you know, that you trust, it's anyone can see it. That's that's
Forever.
if you think about it, that's super scary and super risky.
It really is, man. And I have a sneaking suspicion. We're obviously falling out of the review of vulnerability episode 327 because we want to talk about this. It's driving our experience as a human race, Neil. I think in the way that we're not even conscious of, and we're going to talk about some of the outcomes of that because our psychology is aware of all of that. Our subconsciousness. We don't even have the the comparative analysis of how our parents dealt with this because they just didn't.
They didn't have to deal with this stuff.
And it's massive, massive, massive overwhelm.
Hmm.
It just doesn't stop. it's picking up steam in the influence of how the algorithms call us out. I was talking to somebody, maybe it was you. We were talking about a topic, and their Facebook stream started sending them all these things on the topic that they had never really been interested in, but they looked it up for me because we were talking about it, and now they're like doomed to look at whatever the topic was for quite a while.
My wife gets weird stuff on her from the different clients I work with. She'll be on her Facebook and I'll be over there. I'm like, hey, I know those guys. I work with those guys. I'm doing email stuff with them.
Yeah,
Like, but then
yeah,
there's the crazy stuff is when you talk about it and then it shows up on your stream. It's like, how did this, like, you didn't even talk on the phone. You just talk it. But that's a scary part in itself. But I want to go back to one more thing. In the third question you said is what risk or what's come with being open about your struggles, especially with therapy or in relationships, right? I'm
okay,
going to
yeah,
say this when it comes to it. If you're in a good relationship or you have a good therapist, there really shouldn't be any risk to you getting vulnerable, especially from a therapy standpoint. If you really are in therapy and you have a good relationship with, there should be absolutely no risk when it comes to getting vulnerable. That's what kind of relationship you should have. Now, when it comes to your other relationships, there's a lot more variables tied to it. But as a therapist, if you don't feel comfortable with your therapist, you think there is a risk that you can't get vulnerable with them, you
get a new one.
neither talk to them or find another therapist. And we've talked
Yeah,
about that in other shows that if you can fire your therapist if it's not working out, find someone that works for you. But
got
that's
to have good connection, rapport, and
the
safety. It's all about
the,
emotional safety.
the
Yeah.
reward should wholly outweigh from a therapy standpoint the risk because there should be almost zero risk and everything should come from it as a reward. That's just my take on it.
Super well said. We're halfway through our time, and so we're going to transition. We're not trying to short these shows, but uh, you know, recently we, as a panel, kind of sounded off, I think it's interesting because in the United States we have the very public slaying, murder, shooting of Charlie Kirk, and it's like Neil, when Columbine happened, that was an experience that the United States had when we figured out that wow, somebody can walk into an elementary school and start, popping off an automatic rifle, and we were shocked by that, and we haven't really been shocked by things as much because it is so commonplace. We have hangings and shootings and lootings and protests and fraud events and all sorts of things that are going on in human behavior. Some are new. Many, to your point, Neil, aren't exactly new totally in human behavior. Craig, the old co host, not that his age is old, loved Craig, but you are an old man too, but the old co host of the show, uh, and I loved to make the point when we started trying to talk about mass murder events that these aren't really a new experience. We have had Little House on the Prairie with kids coming into schoolhouses and knifing to death 3 or 4 kids. That you can look at a history of events and you would be surprised. So it's not that the human behavior itself is new. Shoot, in the Middle Ages, there were some brutal realities that human beings would do for punishments or attacking others and various things. They would lay your body down on a couple of rocks and put it in your mid back section, and they would cover your chin and your shoulders and your pelvis with rocks and basically slowly crush your spine. Did you know that? That's a real reality.
Yeah, there's a lot of torture stuff out there.
Nuts.
I probably know more than I should, but it's amazing. Yeah.
So the human behavior isn't new. And I really want to hear this loudly. We are so myopic and egocentric in these United States to think that we have a major problem with political systems. The left hates the right hates the left. My tribe hates your tribe. You're against us, so we're fighting you. We're going to attack. We're going to defend. I hope this guy who just killed 10 people in a church is not a Republican. Oh, that would be so bad. See, it makes sense. They were a liberal. You guys are wrong. We are right, and vice versa. All of that crap. Like, this is not the United States of America and an exclusive problem. Neil,
mean,
I hope you understand and can see and agree with me that this is all across the world.
I mean,
It's not specific to us.
yeah, I mean, historically, you hear the warring tribes or the warring countries where there's them versus them. I mean, for U.S. based, you can go back to the Hatfield and the McCoys, right? That whole story, right? Those types of things. But yeah, it's definitely not. This is not really us. This isn't a U.S. thing. I mean, like I said, you hear countries and you go over to Europe or other countries, and one country hates the other just because of something that comes from it, right? There is we do as a human society, we build our tribes of those that we agree with and those that we like, right? That's how we work. And then if you're not in our tribe, you're in a different tribe, and if you're not in our tribe, we don't really like you. This is not new, right? We've just adapted it different from, and right now our case is politics. It used to be, Civil War was North versus South, civil rights, you black versus white, right? We've always had these metrics, US versus California, because California should be its own country, but that's a whole nother thing, right?
So let's
uh,
let's look at what the problem is, Neil. We don't like mass murder events. The United States has more of those than around the world. That's actually a true thing. We don't like political unrest. That is going on in France, exonified. Germany. We won't even go to dictatorship lands, but you you've got major political realities with Brexit, and how people are processing that information. The decision, do we tax, do we not tax? You have elements of family functioning, estrangements in families over silly topics of things we cannot control. We have what else is the problem that you think technology is highlighting? It goes down to daily living, right, Neil? It goes down to not just the United States politics. It goes down to like how human beings are interacting with people. So, what is the problem? Let's spend a moment on it to be clear. What is the problem in human interactions that is either created by or proliferated by our current mode of communication in the computer world? How does it affect us?
I think the biggest part when it comes to how it affects us is the fact that with the algorithms that have been created, when we find our tribe, when we find what we like, we get fed our tribal information more and more and more. And there is no echo chamber for us to actually have other other opinions or other sides to it. Once again, if we lean one direction or another, you're fed that information over and over and over again, and it basically builds you on an island that anything below you is not equal to you. The idea of actually arguing your side versus someone else's side, it's a lot harder than it used to be, because we don't know how, because we do see so much that we agree with, we don't really know how to take when we don't agree with it, right? And then that becomes a major problem. And I think that's the biggest issue with social media. It's not social media itself, it's the algorithms they use to feed you what they think you need, and you just feed into it. I mean, how hard is it if you believe in stance X, to go out and spend even 5 minutes listening to the other side of that opinion without getting some sort of I've done this on my side where it's like I try to go watch other stuff, and because my logic is a certain way, I'm like, I can't listen to this because it doesn't make sense to me. I don't want to deal with it, right?
There's an avoidance. There's a shutdown. And
So
you're touching there a lot on dehumanization. Go ahead.
100%, and that's the issue, right? That's the problem. It's not about, Chris, you and I are guys that live near in Gaston County, and we have kids, and we like to be outside, and you have feelings like I have feelings. It's me versus you because you voted for this way and I voted that way, which makes you less human than me, right? But you would, in the other way, you do be the same way. Instead of looking at how we're common, how we have similarities, it's what's different about you, and those differences what makes me not like you. Downright even say hate you.
Let's talk about money for a moment and to demonstrate how technology influences that. Okay. The emotions. I just had an experience the other day that was really cool. Long story short, my kid has a big truck. He's got these tires, and he wanted to sell the rims. You know how the kids do. They want to look sharp. They got all their rims, tires, sizes, whatever, blades. And it's nuts. I don't enjoy that world. I don't know that world. But I was selling I was selling the rims for him because he had them at my house because he has an apartment, right? So so he sets up this sale, Neil, and this kid, this awesome little kid, he comes to me and he agrees to buy them. It was $1,400. He's got a handful of $100 bills, and he counts them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 12, 13, 14. Now, I obviously skipped some numbers because it's taking too long. He experienced the emotion of that money in his hand. I experienced him counting those $100 that needed to be counted so that they were correct. And I was excited for my son that he was getting $1,400, maybe $1,300 because I need a commission. That's a joke, but not really, because I was excited about that for my son. That kid was really kind of happy about his rims, but he felt and made the decision to give $1,400, counted it out for me, and we exchanged that. He took the tires, I took the money, and we had an emotional engagement. How different is that emotional experience if he would have just zipped me that money on a phone? Whoop,
Right.
here's a button push. You don't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You just psychologically, you cannot feel it. When's the last time you had $1,400 cash in your hand? I'm asking you, the listener. That is a very different experience than seeing digits on a computer screen and popping that electronically to an account or paying off a credit card or something.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Okay. That is very, very important to then transcribe that conveyed reality to literally what we are experiencing on a way wider scale, where it becomes possible to go outside public with a rifle in a major crowd, take a spot on a roof, pull a trigger, that you have shot bullets, that you've written on messages to someone like Charlie Kirk's neck. How does that happen? It's anger, it's fear, it's emotion run riot, it's an inability to connect and understand and even see that person as a human being. We're getting so out of touch, and it's creating massive changes in human behavior that we are not catching up to, and it's devastating to human relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's devastating to a man and a woman in a marriage or your partner of choice. It is devastating to your relationship with your child. It is devastating for the relationships that you have with your family through estrangements, conflicts, avoidance, all sorts of things, your neighborhood, your schools, your state, your country, all told. We are losing the ability to vulnerably be seen outside of a freaking keyboard, engage with the person that might be your neighbor and have a conversation and convey and experience their compassion and perspective and opinion. The, the TV was an amazing change in human experience. And it took a lot of years for us to adjust to having that be in our life. You know, Neil, how long was a TV functioning when TVs first came out in somebody's life? The evening news, an hour? You
Yeah, it's something like
popped on
that,
and watched
right?
a show.
I mean, you
And
had
then there
what?
was
You had the what, like three channels, maybe
three
five.
channels, nothing
You
but
know,
snow after 9 o'clock or whatever.
you get the bee,
The
after.
line, yeah. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
It,
you would go from like 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and that was it, right?
and we went off the air. You're back to normal. And you didn't watch that the whole day long. There was no such thing as watching a soap opera every single day, 3 or 4 hours of content when you watch it. Like, we adjusted to the use of a TV that dramatically changed the life that we live. I could see somebody that was in another a country delivering a talk. I figured out what was going on in World War II by like a movie kind of thing, and I saw video. But it was so slow. It was so grainy. It wasn't invested in our life for hours at a time, even, or the content wasn't even available. You said 3 channels. Did we adjust to using a TV, Neil?
Yeah, of course.
Human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We adjusted to a phone. Going from a telephone to a microphone. You've seen those lines of technology increases, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Went from a wheel, and it took us like 200,000 years to build a spear, I guess. It was like major gaps in early human technology gain, right?
Yeah. Yep.
We have a millisecond now with new technology gains because it exponentially gets greater. My whole premise is that we are killing people literally because we cannot handle the technological advance in the way that we engage through computers. And the computer itself has dramatically changed the way that we interact way more as human beings than any other technology has. We can't handle it, Neil.
Well, where there's two big problems with computers when it comes to interacting is one, I don't know if you've ever noticed this from younger kids. Younger people, I feel like, unless they go through certain things, they can't even tolerate being in the presence of other people. The anxiety, the pressure, like all of like so that's one thing. Like they don't even know how to just be in the room with other people to how to interact, right? When you have a computer, the computer doesn't give you back anything as far as vibes, pheromones, whatever, right? So you get a lot of young people that have, social awkwardness, anxiety, those like antisocial behaviors because they don't know how to be in front of someone, right? The other part too is the computer really doesn't disagree with you. Once again, they don't know how to get that pushback, right? From a computer, it's I'm looking up stuff and it's feeding me back that information. If I want to find out why this party is better than that party, it will give me all of the pros of that party I want to look for, right? Or
Yep.
why this country is better than that country, right? The problem is with computers, it's a glorified yes man that doesn't really give you the overwhelming presence. You and I talked about therapy remote versus therapy in person, or talking to someone in person versus talking to someone over the phone. I mean, that's the difference, right? I would much rather spend time with my wife in the room with me than being on a Zoom call with her if I was traveling the country. I want to have that physical connection, or even with my kids. I would rather I
She's
talk to them.
real. She's real.
I get that vibe from her, and I like that vibe. But if you're not used to it, the vibe is scary. That presence is scary. And if you feel like you're gonna say something that's gonna offend them because the computer has said, if you guys don't agree 100% of the time, it's gonna be this big explosion. Well, you're never gonna talk to anyone. You're never gonna learn those things because so and so, I think he's this type of person or she's this type of person. If I say this, they're going to get mad at me and then I don't know how to deal with confrontation. Once again, this is the algorithms, right? And so
It reflects us. It
it,
reflects our emotion, our hatred, our fear, our lack of vulnerability, our confusion, our overwhelm, and actually personifies it or builds it up.
right. And the reality is most people aren't like that way. When you talk to someone, if you and I, we've
We're
had
not.
discussions and we disagree. I mean, I'm right more than you are, but in that case, we don't get mad at each other. I think there's been a few times we've been
Getting a
annoyed.
little irritated right now, to be honest with you.
But the reality is we've learned that and through society, yeah, we disagree, but it doesn't mean that we're neither one of us is a horrible person. It doesn't mean that the other person's the spawn of Satan and like everything's gonna go bad. Like the reality is no one's gonna agree with everything you say. And in reality, you can have disagreements and be fine with it. You can have that falling out and then get back together. You can even just have a civil discussion and yell and then 2 minutes later be hugging.
But here's the thing, like intellectually, I think people are probably able to listen to our conversation, Neil, and agree. But emotionally, the way that we feel when we're actually in it, we're not catching up to. We're not really connecting the dots. We're not realizing, what effect that's having on our emotion. I can't imagine how somebody gets radicalized. I've thought about that a lot. This whole topic of computers and social media and how it's influencing our interaction styles. How is a kid that lives in Louisiana or Zimbabwe or Prague gonna listen to these things on a computer, interact with this person through a video scope, and begin to get information from them and radicalize that into taking a bomb and blowing up a building? Like, how does that happen? It happens by this interaction. You would have to get a spy that weaseled their way into Belgium in order to talk to a high schooler in whatever city is in Belgium and begin to develop a full relationship with Bob the Belgian to get them in order to be able to blow up a building, right? But
Yeah.
now we have Bob sitting in his house alone, probably going through emotionally developmental normal human things, reaching out, talking to a predatory person in another place in the world, quickly developing a relationship because I can reach out and talk to anyone at all times, permanently placing my thoughts on this computer, and somehow they get into my emotional space at the time that they do, where I will take a bomb and blow up a train in France.
And the biggest problem going back to technology is once you start thinking about that path, technology then diverts you that way. If you looked up something about something, right? Once again, Charlie Kirk, if you look up something about Tyler Robinson, it's like that can take you down a path based on what he said, and you don't, before you realize it, this can happen, right? If you research something, maybe you're doing some of a class project, the Ireland bombing, right? Lord knows where that takes you, or groups that could put you in that you then start interacting with, and then things happen from there, right? That's the problem with technology. Technology serves what you search for, good or bad. Now there are safeguards that are supposed to be in place from some of these searches, that if there are, the anarchy cookbook or anarchist cookbook, you're not supposed to get
Oh
that
dear.
anywhere because it's horrible, right? But the reality is if you wanted to, if you spend 30 minutes, you could probably find some place to download it, right? Because it's out there. Once again, it's permanency. But the problem is from a radicalization standpoint, it used to be that it was the people you hung out with, your family, your friends, and those, and that friend knows a friend that, oh, all of a sudden now you're looking at this, activism or radical nature. Like you said, now, as soon as you start it, as soon as you start going down that path, you get recommended a Facebook group or
Proliferates it.
it just makes it so much worse. And so the problem is then once you start that looking at that part, you become isolated within that environment. If you're not leaving that environment to have conversations with people for you to express it, one of the things, and Charlie Kirk said, all speech should be free. You should be able to say anything you want. It's like, what about hate speech? I don't care. Anyone should say anything they want to say, because what happens is if you say something that is that extreme, society should knock you down and be like, no, that's not right. You need to stop, right? But when you start dictating what's good and bad in speech, that becomes heavily weighed based on who's ruling at the time or who's dictating those pieces, right? Just because I
Yeah,
say
but
something.
but pause there, Neil, real quick, because what we're talking about is how computers change that. You have hate speech and should be able to say it, but when you say it online in some way, the algorithms come in, and you don't hear society knocking your thought down anymore. Like, think about that and what you just said.
Right.
You say something crazy, you get more of that
Crazy.
crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and you become crazier. In that crazier state, it exponentially continues to grow because you're not hearing the world knock down
Well,
your
because
crazy thought.
because you're going over here to this part, because the non-crazy
Right.
is in their silo and the crazy is in their silo, and then they never talk to each other. It's like missile silos. They're in the ground. They're not up above where they can look out and see the other crazies. They're in the ground. They don't know what's going on. And
And what's
so,
wild is human beings then on the other side are doing the same thing and getting crazy also. To
right.
not overuse the word crazy, but when we get a kid that we love and care about and we want them to be safe, we get crazy consumed with it, and we track a little dot on a phone to watch where our kid is at all times. What does that do to the emotion of a parent and a child relationship? Yeah, we could go on and on and on with so many examples of finances, of parenting, of marriage, of tracking, of technological advances that are exploding exponentially faster. I had an article from John that said, a title, she thought she was flirting with her favorite celebrity, a heartbreaking deep fake scam cost her everything. And it's like the stories we were talking about recently with fraud. You cannot have those kinds of experiences in whatever before computers were here. You would have to take a picture of some famous guy to somebody's house and leave it in a mailbox and try to convince them that somehow this famous actor came to your mailbox and was literally at your street. How believable is that that would happen? But yet somebody can get an email from a bot and buy into and fully be in love with Burt Reynolds, thinking Burt Reynolds really loves me, and give Burt Reynolds, who's actually a bot, $500,000. I mean, we could go on and on with these examples, Neil. Are we getting it? Hopefully, helping people see not the news flashes and the headlines, but the human emotional experience and how that's been affected by computers.
I hope so. I mean, the computers and the technology is causing our disconnect across the board, and I think that's the number one thing I would say with that process is I think, and that's the term I've heard from a couple people: go out and touch grass, right? That's what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
one guy
Our buddy
said
David,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
Get in barefoot and touch grass.
Yeah, and I heard someone on LinkedIn do it, and then David said, I was like, oh, that's funny. But yeah, I mean, that's the idea, right? It's getting out of your own silo to go see what's going on, right? Take the stairs up to the ground floor. This isn't Fallout. It's safe to be in the public, right? You can leave your missile silo and you can go visit other people, right? Because it just becomes that whole situation, right? That's the important part. And once again, technology, and as you stated from human natures, technology is advancing a lot faster than we can. And we're a human body, human brains, everything. It's an amazing machine. It's amazing
Really
function
is.
behind it. But technology, because it has
Way,
no
way
empathy,
more.
no compassion, or anything, it's just moving forward and learning and growing and adapting. And it's just, we can't keep up with it from the human nature side. And that's why people are better than technology. We have the human nature, we have the emotions and the feelings, and we have so many other things. It's just hard for us to keep up.
We got comments on YouTube and stuff already. And Carolyn, hey, Carol, she's saying, yeah, good content and it's much, much needed because another I want to keep trying because you're right, Neil. We just can't keep up with these things in our subconscious. Human beings aren't designed to move emotionally that fast. We need to sit, meditate, be mindful, right? Before we take actions and move. We might meditate and decide on something for years before we decide to tell our husband that we're going to leave the marriage. Years, not seconds. Right? That's the way human beings operate. So think about when the United States was in World War One, and I hope I don't offend anybody, using these terms, but we would create these terms, right? The Japs, the squinty eyes, the squids. We would have like cartoons in newspapers, sort of depicting these people as monkeys and stuff. You know what I'm talking about, Neil?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of stereotyping that was done back then based on the different
Why?
characteristics, right?
What purpose emotionally in relationships does that serve?
You try to dehumanize the enemy, right? You try
So
to
we can
make them,
kill them.
yeah, feel better about killing them, not feel bad about it. Let me phrase that. Maybe not feel better, but not feel bad, right?
We want to be able, because we know we need to kill this group of people, and we don't want to feel like we're killing humans.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that through a mass campaign. And I don't even know, to be honest with you, that when countries do that against other countries, I'm sure the Russians are saying the Ukrainians are just evil people. In fact, we know they are. Their propaganda kind of puts that out there. And I just used the word propaganda. Is that propaganda? Is that purposeful? There may be a cabal out there. I have no idea. people get into conspiracy thinking, try to gain control emotionally over what we don't understand. But here's the deal: like, is that purposeful? I don't know that the United States of America made horrible depictions of Japanese people on purpose so that we as a society would feel better about killing them. I think that probably happens a little bit naturally because we defend from the horrible feelings that we feel. Now, I'm sure there's some intention behind it,
Well,
but there's
I
a
think, well,
combined just experience behind it.
yeah, and just so you know, the Japanese weren't involved in World War One; it was World War Two.
Oh, thank you.
But that's okay. But I think it's sort of like I said, just like a lot of the propaganda things, it's you're building your nation up to one to feel better about it, but then two, you're tearing down your enemies, right? It's the same thing, right? It's that when it comes to the Ukrainians and the Russians, most of the soldiers out there, they don't want to be there. They don't want to be involved in this. You see the stories.
Right.
On World War II, there was like Christmas Eve. Both lines basically had a truce to do a Christmas Eve dinner or something like that. Like there was some
Oh,
story
for
like
real?
that. Yeah, there was something where like Christmas Eve or something they actually did like a communal Christmas thing to celebrate to bring back humanity. Of course, once
Between
again,
the battalions?
between opposing sides. I'd have to go find the story, but there was
Wow.
legitimately something in there that there was a ceasefire long enough that they celebrated Christmas, and then afterwards they're back to enemies. Right? It's that
That's
the
wild.
the people that rule the countries, they don't want their enemies to be seen as human, because that means their soldiers aren't going to fight them without a valid reason, right? There has to be something. Either there's a valid reason because they're trying to do something for the betterment of their country. You think about what the Nazis and Hitler and Mussolini and all those, like those were horrible people that had to be stopped. Or if it's not a legitimate reason, you have to make a reason. And if you're going to propagate it, once again, like with technology now, technology propagandizes anything that you don't agree with, and it dehumanizes you, and that's when you do feel disconnected, and you do attack and lash out, and you're okay with that because that person's bad and horrible, and because they don't agree with what I agree with, then it's okay if I'm violent to them or something bad happens to them, right? Those are those things that happen. It's that same basic idea. Technology
From a
is just
mental
making it
health
so much worse.
perspective, we need to look and understand how these modes of interaction are happening and causing us to have these types of things, not from one country to the next, but from my cousin to the next aunt in my family. The proliferation of this human interaction is very, very fine in personal and close relationships, just as much as mass events in mass murders or in wartime where groups of people are battling. That I really are. We need to understand that human experience. It's literally doing this in your family. Like, how are people so estranged over wearing masks during COVID where they hate feelings towards their uncle? And that's the stuff that's happening, Neil.
Because
That,
their silo said they were right, and if others didn't agree, then they're horrible people.
so Uncle John becomes a horrible person. Now, I'm not talking about John on the panel of Through Therapist Eyes. I'm talking about your Uncle John in your family becomes evil and stupid and a horrible person. Like, wow. Wow. That's what our human experience is up against.
Mm-hmm.
And we better figure this out, Neil. I might start sounding off on this because human beings need to be figuring this out. We need to catch up emotionally to what's going on because we haven't even seen the proliferation of new technology yet. When we get quantum computing and AI, I went down a rabbit hole with that. This is going to start happening faster and faster and faster. That's what technology has always done, and that's what it's going to continue doing. And I'm really starting to wonder if we're going to be able to survive it, man. Like literally, as a human race. I wonder if we're going to be able to survive that. I know that sounds dramatic. I know that sounds a little over the top. My new line is I know I'm extra, but I'm not. I'm better than being lesser than. That's my new life motto. But I am really beginning. You should see his face on the YouTube live, everybody, when I said that. I am really beginning to wonder if we can withstand and survive this proliferation.
We do adapt, but the question, will we adapt fast enough?
I mean, that's the point.
Yep.
And, you know, ain't got a good track record right now, man. I mean, President Donald Trump is not near the lightning rod that we like to make him out to be. We've had other lightning rods before in humankind. You mentioned Hitler. That was a rough, rough time. You know, we had a guy named Richard Nixon that, man, people really did not like that guy. We had major differences with Vietnam and whether we should be there as a country. You know, Joan of Arc was a lightning rod. Now revolutions have happened, massive world events have occurred over this type of thing, but not as rapidly as it's happening now, I would maintain. And we're
Well,
on an emotional reason on why that is.
yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think part of it is just because of how widespread things are now versus before. Because even when you look at World War II with that, there were still time things had to propagate. Now it's like if I'm just trying to think of like if you go back like you think about what our world would have been like if like Abe Lincoln was around right now, or even George Washington, right? What would have happened to our society if we tried to dismantle from British, right? The Britons and those like it's just there's things that happen because we didn't have technology that we have these great foundations and these different things. But God, just think about what things would have been like with the U.S. politics back in when it started, back in the turn of the 18th century, what that would have looked like and where we'd be divulged now. Think about the Dark Ages and those things with kings and stuff. Like, imagine if, you know, the king, everyone in the countryside knew about what the king did because he had his eighth wife beheaded and everyone knew that, right? Those like it's just amazing, like the things
Yeah.
that used to happen and the lives that we lived because they didn't know what was going on, which was there's times I'm like, I wish I didn't know. I've said this many, many times. One of the downfall of our society with a lot of these stuff that happens, it's the news and the media. Someone does something horrible. We talked about Columbine. How many times do we have school shootings after Columbine because now the news is spreading it?
But let's not blame the news. That happens way too much. The media outlets across the world have gotten crazy in the way that they operate. I do not disagree with that. But we need to get beyond that and look underneath about the why. They are just doing their job. They are able
they could
to
do
follow.
better.
Huh?
they could do better with their job. I'm sorry, but and I've said this before. Something like Columbine in Colorado, that does not need to go over all over the world. Something in Maine, Maryland doesn't need to go all over the world. That's a small thing. These mass shootings, they're localized. For them to sensationalize this and send this everywhere, it's just a way for it's clickbait, it's sensationalism, there's a lot of people when you look at the history of violence acts and things, there's the insane people that start trends and there's the copycats that follow. That's the problem. The problem I have with news media and those things is, does it really matter to me and if something happens in Colorado if it was localized? Do I really need to do I really need to see a horrible act of violence somewhere that doesn't really affect me when it's very localized? Charlie Kirk's different because he's a national figure, right? Everyone knows him. A school in Columbine doesn't need the sensationalism that now other people are mimicking it because it became this thing. That's the problem I have with news, because a lone shooter up in Maryland that happened up there, Delaware, wherever that was earlier this year, he killed like 3 coworkers and they made it a big national thing. Like it, why are
Here's
we
the thing, though,
sensationalizing
bud.
these types of things?
I don't want to take responsibility off of these groups. I totally agree
Yeah.
with most everything you just said. But what I'm trying to get us to think about in a different way is underneath of that.
Why are they
If
showing those things?
yeah, because Neil, listen, if I told you you go into Through a Therapist Eyes and you click and you put a title out there that says new therapist wrecks the world with his new ideas about why we're having a hard time or whatever the hell would get that clickbait, and you know that you're going to make $157,000 off of creating that title and putting it on our website. You're telling me that you're not going to do that? Now, actually, I believe that you have integrity, and I think that you wouldn't do that because you
Right.
know you're doing harm. But human beings don't have that ability, particularly if your job and your livelihood is based on that.
Oh,
The
100%.
the podcast people, the thought leaders, the content creators, the executives at Disney, the crazy stuff with Jimmy Kimmel, and all the things that we see with what's the other guy from Fox that got fired, and all this stuff. Like, I'm not absolving those things. I agree with everything you said, but we got to get into like looking at why is that happening.
Yeah,
CNN
100%.
was an amazing channel. It was the leader of news,
Because it actually did real news,
right?
right?
And now, not because of bad people. I really want to switch our thinking and say, and I love that we're on this, Neil, because you're so right, and that's the way people think about it. You are on point, and I agree with you. But that change happened because the way that CNN can deliver information in
Mhm.
overwhelming fashion, and then other networks picked up on that. And now you got your silos with words that seem crazy, news that seems hyper focused. I don't know that people did that on purpose completely.
It was an organic shift based on the way things were trending. That's the thing,
Right.
right? Once Columbia rocket got blew up, once Columbine happened, blew up, and the news people saw, look at our ratings now because we're talking about stuff, right? But then once again, the reality is just as a human nature, why are, we start getting sucked into TV, and then we get more information, then we want to learn more. Like, there's so many things that, once again, this was not a single activity that led to this, but
Oh,
organically we got there, and then technology just, it's that curve, right? We're like here with this little bit, and all of a sudden it went from like TV getting your nightly news to 24 hours a day. You've said it before, right? You get inundated from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, and usually you're staying up 3 hours past it because you're stuck on YouTube scrolling, right? We've said
yeah.
that before. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
I'm watching YouTube now when I should be sleeping.
yeah.
And
I,
I'm
I,
choosing to do that.
I'm cutting out YouTube Shorts and all my stuff because I knew I was wasting my time. I was spending
We
so much time wasting, and it's
talked about that recently.
been
And you're not a bad
amazing.
person, Neil, for doing that. What my thoughts are, and I'm going to move more with this and try to be somewhat of a leader to help us figure out, because there are solutions. You're falling into a trap. The executives at Fox News that present completely ridiculous highlighted on one side and nothing of the other is because they're falling into an emotional trap.
Silo.
It's a silo.
Yep.
It's a it's almost like, if there was a grand cabal, they did a hell of a good job in developing and highlighting and creating a computer, because that is what is doing this to all of us. I
Yep.
love my technology, man. I got an awesome microphone here. It looks awesome. The phone is tracking the time, a computer that I'm talking to you, and you're not even in this room. It's amazing. But it can do so much harm in some of the ways that we're talking about it. And I think we're blaming other people. Those people at Fox News are lovely people. I don't like the way they talk sometimes. They're literally talking about murdering through injection the schizophrenic person who stabbed the beautiful Ukrainian woman on the bus. That's not going to happen. He's not going to stand trial because he's never going to be found sane enough to do that. But they're saying he needs to be killed. Like, these are beautiful, wonderful people that are saying this about somebody in some way that they don't really even understand, but they're saying it in such a cruel way. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did I get? Yeah, I could hate that person for saying that about somebody that's in my community, by the way, that as a mental health person, maybe I had the opportunity to treat. It is very conceivable that that dude was on my caseload and they're wanting to crucify him because he had a psychotic break, and we as a society didn't give him the treatment that he really needs, because that guy is loaded full of mental health issues. Bad. Wild to think at the way we transpose with each other. So I've been thinking a lot about this. I really think that there are some things that we can do, like turn the Facebook off. The kids call it death scrolling. Don't death scroll. You've stopped your YouTube shorts. I am not going to be watching YouTube at 11 o'clock at night much anymore if I can help it. But that's hard to manage. We have to manage
You
ourselves.
have to be very intentional.
It, go with that, and we'll wrap up, because that leads into a lot of the ideas of what's going to help.
Yes,
Intentionality.
everything you do, you have to be intentional with your actions. It's whether you purposely open up your YouTube stream, your Instagram thing, your who you're talking to, who you're not talking to, who you're engaging with, what are you reading, how are you letting that interact or cause your reaction, right? There has to be intentionality in what you do, which means you have to go back to understanding what's triggering, what's processing it. Everything we do, if you don't become intentional, you become reactive, and that's the last place we want. That's the first thing technology wants, because technology feeds on your reactions. It's the knee jerk, it's the clickbait. To combat that, we have to be intentional. Is this real? Is this true? Am I upset because of this or this? Is that person really bad, or am I just in a bad place when I read that article? What's going on, right? It's just something we have to be. We can't live our life haphazardly, letting technology dictate what we see, do, and who we interact with. We have to be 100% intentional.
And the damning thing about this to the human race is that you're on point and went well with that to say that we need to be intentional, but people don't even know it's happening to them. They don't even know.
Nope.
They don't even know that they need to be intentional. Do you know that you need to be intentional about not watching the little dot on your phone that represents your kid trying to track him? Now, that could be a helpful thing, in some regards, and it also can make a parent freak out when they're simply going to the prom.
I have a story behind that, but we'll talk about that after off air. But yeah,
I have a feeling that we're going to discuss this more and more because I'm really kind of feeling a need as a mental health person to begin helping us understand what's going on and kind of getting into like, how do we manage this? What do we do about it?
yep,
Uh, we have no time to do that today, but I think today is really about, and I know if you're still listening with us, I appreciate you hanging longer and share this with your friends, man. Share this with you people that you know, because I think this is more of the conversation that we need to be having than why are we not doing gun control? Why are we not, getting the right person elected in office? All of that
and
nonsense is
and
just,
and when you share it with
ugh,
someone, call them or go meet them in person. Say, hey, I have someone to share with you. Don't just send them a little thing and send it through that.
I
Actually,
love
really make a
that.
connection and share with them. Say, hey Joe, I got this great web podcast that I just listened to. It's really good. You should listen to it. Here, I'll text it to you now. Or when you guys meet for lunch or breakfast or something, spend some time with people. Go touch grass. Go back to that idea, right? Don't let
Because you're
technology
saying this,
dictate
Neil,
you.
I'm going to make a direct challenge to anyone who hears this show to have a conversation with somebody and highlight something that you heard on it, and then and only then, connect them to it. That's
Yep.
a direct difference than the way this crap tends to work in computer world. Neil,
Yep.
that is awesomely said, man. I think that's where we need to stop today. We'll continue developing this. The whole goal of Through a Therapist Eyes is to dispel myths and stereotypes and disseminate information on mental health and substance abuse. Man, I can't think of more of an existential crisis to the human race that this topic represents for us to make that a focus of.
Yep.
Really and truly. We're going to figure this out together, guys, okay? Really and truly, I think that we can. I have a belief in humanity. I have a belief in how and what we were created, and that we can catch up to this rapidly evolving world and emotionally get grounded again, settle down to get some equilibrium. Let's have more conversations about that side of it as well. All right. Take care. Be well. We will see you guys next week.